I'm Yoko Chapman, and I'm with Patrick O'Reilly, Executive Coach and President, Padraig Coaching and Consulting. So Patrick, tell me a bit about how you came to be an executive coach.
Sure. I spent about 20 years as an executive myself, mostly in the federal government, but also in a Crown Corporation and a few other areas. And when I left that work, I decided to be a consultant, kind of that classic consultant when you leave your day job. And one of the first people to approach me as a consultant asked if I had ever thought of being a coach, because he was looking for an executive coach. And he had heard about me, he had read about me in my career, and thought that I would have some interesting experience to bring to coaching him. And so of course at that point I said, sure, if you want to hire me, I'll be a coach. And I realized that it was more than the mentoring that I had done for my staff when I was working elsewhere. This required more of me. And so I started to look into it, I started to research more and realized that there's an opportunity here, particularly in Winnipeg. So I went back to school. I did a master's program in executive coaching, specifically at Royal Roads in Victoria. And then by the time I'd finished that, Winnipeg being Winnipeg, I suppose, that client had started telling other people about his experiences with me. I was starting to get phone calls from people. And it really became essential that I was certified and had a master's degree and all of that sort of stuff. And so thankfully, within a very short time, I had a number of different clients around town and began getting calls from elsewhere. And I now have, executive clients throughout North America.
Oh, that's great. That worked out well. Yeah. So now you focus on developing leaders. That's your area of expertise. So tell us a bit about who needs a coach.
Sure. I personally think every leader needs a coach. And when I say leader, I mean someone who's leading people in an organization. It's something I have to tell you, I wish I'd known when I was an executive. I didn't even know about coaching. I knew about mentors, but mentors come at it from a different angle. Mentors talk about, here's how I did things when I was coming up the ladder, and maybe that will help you. Whereas a coach really provokes you to think about your own path, where you want to be, and why aren't you there yet? What's preventing you from getting there, and how to get there. And so our focus at Padraig Coaching and Consulting is really on leadership, leading other people. How do you motivate your team to be stronger? How do you be stronger as a leader? What kind of leader do you want to be as you grow within your organization? And then that helps your organization grow as well.
Okay. So what typically might happen at a first meeting when you meet with a new client? What is the process to sort of start digging into what the concerns might be?
That's a great question. The first meeting is usually a get to know each other kind of meeting. In fact, all of the coaches in my firm offer a kind of an introductory session free of charge, complimentary, so that people can get to know us, because that's essential. You have to have a good rhythm with your coach. You have to give a mesh of your personalities. And depending on what you're looking for, you need to make sure your coach can bring that. So in that first session, we'll talk about their expectations. Do they want a coach who's tough on them and really holds up that mirror and challenges them to think differently, which is an area that we particularly excel in? Or do they want someone who can just maybe encourage them more, support them more, that sort of thing. So it really depends on each client. We also get to know what are their long-term goals. So beyond the coaching relationship, where do you want to get to? Whether that's a level, I want to be the president of my company, or I want to have a team that really loves working for me. When my company does their 360-degree evaluations and asks my team what they think of me, I want to excel. I want people to really appreciate me as a leader, whatever. And then we set out some goals and what can we accomplish through our coaching relationship to get you onto that path. So whether we're going to meet for 3 months, 6 months, a year, what's a reasonable set of goals for us to measure our success by, so that at the end of that time, the client can look back and say, yes, actually, I exceeded what I wanted to achieve in my coaching relationship.
Right. And I guess one of the big advantages to bringing an expert on board would be that you would have an honest alternative view of a different perspective of that person's life and role as an executive.
Yeah, all of the coaches in our firm have experience being leaders themselves, so we bring some of that to the table. But some of the beauty of it is we don't necessarily have experience in your industry, so we can ask some crazy questions that might be appropriate in another industry that cause a leader to go, oh, I never thought about it that way before, and have one of those aha moments. But as well, we can often say, as an outside observer, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm hearing when you talk that way, or here's what I think people are picking up from you. What do you think about that? Does that seem accurate? How do you think that's affecting your work? How do you think that's affecting the team? And we'll kind of dive deep into that. We'll explore it a little more. We'll spiral in and figure out where the challenges are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would be one piece of advice that you would give if you wanted to offer some guidance or direction?
Everybody's an individual, of course, and so everyone will have a different perspective. But I think if I was to give a nice generic piece of advice that I found is applicable to almost everyone that I work with, it's to know you're not alone, or you don't have to be. The higher up the corporate ladder or the government ladder that you're climbing, the lonelier it gets. We hear this all the time from all of our clients. I burden my husband or my wife enough with my problems at work. I don't want to do that anymore. My colleagues are maybe competing with me for the same role, or maybe they've got their own challenges, or some things I just need to work out beyond the scope of my office. I don't want to lay things on my team. They've got enough challenges and I have to be the leader. So the higher up I go, the fewer people I have I can talk to about these challenges. Plus, most people in their work setting, they don't want to betray a lack of confidence in some areas, so they maybe don't want to talk about things. And that can be really devastating to them and the organization if they're not talking about these things. So a coach is a great solution for that problem. We're kind of an expert thinking partner. We'll listen, we'll encourage, we'll motivate, but we'll also challenge and hold up that mirror and say, would you want to work for someone in that situation? Probably not. Let's turn things around. So it's kind of like having a friend and a thinking partner and someone who challenges you more than someone in the company probably would.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you've just listed quite a few signs maybe that people could identify about themselves. Are there any other sort of, top warning signs maybe that we should consider that might indicate we could use some help?
You know what? Coaching is particularly good for a leader who is good and wants to be great, or for a leadership team who are strong and want to be extraordinary. So we really encourage people to think about coaching anytime they're in a leadership role. But an area in particular where we really excel is when a leader's taking on a new team. So whether they've been promoted in and it's their first time leading, or it's their 10th team they've taken on, whether they're moving sideways in an organization or they've been recruited from somewhere else, it doesn't matter. If they're taking on a new team, that is a great time to think about having a coach, because everything's changing, right? And so now's the time to challenge your thinking, think new ways, and all sorts of opportunities open up when you take on a new role. So that would be one for sure. Anytime someone takes on a new role, let's say, you should be thinking right away about hiring a coach. And frankly, if you're negotiating a contract to go work somewhere, negotiate that into the contract. It's good for you and it's good for the company. So the company should be looking at paying for that. Second time I would say is if you've never had a coach or you haven't used a coach in a long time, it's probably an indication it's time. I don't think a coaching relationship should last forever, not by any means. But it should be kind of a serial monogamy, if you will. You should have a coach regularly, right? It's kind of like dating. You should be out there finding a coach on an ongoing basis, not necessarily the same one every time. Someone who can challenge your thinking. The time not to be thinking for a coach, in my mind, is if you're a leader in a company or an HR director and you have a problem employee working for you and you think, I should get them a coach to try and save them before I fire them. At that point, there's other things you can probably do, but coaching isn't ideal. Coaching is ideal for someone who wants it themselves in their heart to really do well and is on a track. So I really encourage, for example, HR directors and companies to look at who among their team are the high flyers, the ones they want to support. If they don't have a coach, they should. Help them get to the next level in the organization and help your organization get to the next level at the same time.
Right. Okay, well, that's great advice. So if any of our readers wanted to find out more about Padraig Consulting, where would they go?
Absolutely. I'd suggest the best place to start is our website. It's www.padraig.ca. Padraig, I should explain, is Padraig, and that is my first name, Patrick, in Gaelic. So that's how I came up with the company name.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.